My name is Amy Vincent, and this is the Cinematography Podcast. And we had kept having to cut because the high school marching band was playing down the street at the last football game of the season, and in the distance is playing Sweet Caroline from the from the high school marching band, and we had to stop filming.
This is Cinepod, the Cinematography Podcast, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. I'm your host, Ilya Friedman, and today on our show, I interview cinematographer Amy Vincent, ASC. Amy and director Craig Brewer have collaborated on several music-forward films, including Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, and the Footloose remake of 2011. Song Sung Blue is their most recent film together. In this episode, you'll learn the comfortable, collaborative relationship between Amy and director Craig Brewer. Also, how attending early vocal recording sessions with Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson allowed Amy to observe their natural chemistry and plan camera movements. As well, embracing the realism of Song Sung Blue shot on location, enhanced through Amy's lighting and composition. After the interview, stick around for our short ends, our pet obsessions of the week. But first, find out what's going on in the world of entertainment in a segment called Close Focus. Oh, hey there, Ben.
Hey, Ilya, how's it going?
Hey, pretty well. It is time for our Close Focus. What is going on this week?
Well, it's kind of the kickoff to award season. So there's the Golden Globes, which don't have a cinematography category, so they can go piss up a rope, and we're not going to talk about them. And
you know, you're right. We love to throw them under the bus, so we won't talk about them. Great, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they went from being a fully co-opted, weird, secret sleeper organization to just being owned by billionaires. So good on them for being bought by billionaires. But actually, I'm way more interested in the ASC nominees, the ASC award nominees. We've had a few of them on the show, and we might have a couple more yet to go. This is, I think, again, not a direct one-to-one prediction of who's going to be nominated for the Oscar, but I think it's a pretty fair assessment. You want to list them for our fine listeners and viewers?
Absolutely. Let's start off with the feature films theatrical. The nominees are Autumn Durald Arkapaw for Sinners, Michael Bauman for One Battle After Another,
Woohoo!
Darius Kanji for Marty Supreme.
Who? Never heard of him.
Dan Louston for Frankenstein.
Woohoo!
And Adolfo Villoso for Train Dreams.
Excellent. We still haven't had him on, but Alana indicated to me that there's a possibility. So there's a possibility that we'll have it. And Train Dreams, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the Golden Globes, but Train Dreams won a lot of stuff at the Golden Globes. So I think it goes from being a dark horse to something we need to be paying a lot more attention to as a serious Oscar contender.
For sure. I'll just move right on to the half-hour episode nominees. Adam Bricker for Hacks.
Nice.
Fraser Brown for Twisted Metal.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Daly for The Righteous Gemstones.
Nice.
Daniel Grant for Murderbot.
Nice.
Matthew J. Lloyd for Government Cheese. And Adam Newport Berra for The Studio.
Excellent. All good choices, although I have not seen The Cheese.
Government Cheese? Yeah, I really enjoyed Government Cheese.
Yeah, it sounds good. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I'm not excluding it. So,
and of course, quite a few friends of the show in there, people who have been on as well. So, next up is the limited anthology series or motion picture made for television, which includes Michael Bauman for Monster, the Ed Gein story, Sam Chiplin for The Narrow Road to the Deep, Episode 1, Pete Konksal for Black Rabbit, Matthew Lewis for Adolescence, and Igor Martinovic for Black Rabbit. And then episodes of a 1-hour regular series include the nominees Alex Dissenhoff for Task, Jessica Lee Gagne for Severance, Dana Gonzalez for Alien Earth, Ben Cutchins for The White Lotus, and Christopher Nunez for Andor.
All slouches, everyone.
4 of the 5 of those have been on the show.
I know there's a lot of them are friends of the show, and we wish them all good luck. But honestly, as they say, it's just an honor to be nominated.
Okay, there is also a Spotlight Award that's listed here, which goes to Stephen Brecken for The Plague, Matthias Erdely for Orphan, Carl Walter Lindenlaub for Amram. And then
Nice.
there is a documentary award and a music video award. And this will take us through all of the nominations. Mstislav Chernov and Alex Babenko for 2,000 Meters. Brandon Summerhalden for Come See Me in the Good Light. Lars Erland Tubis Yamal and Tor Edvin Leisen for Folktales. And then for music videos, Jeff Cronenweth for
Nice.
Supernatural by Ariana Grande, John Joffin and Mitchell Baxter for The False Prophet by Pillars of a Twisted City, John Joffin for Visiting Hours by John Bryant, and Juliet Lossie for Altahamaha, performed by Stacy Subaru, and Rodrigo Prieto for The Fate of Ophelia, performed by Taylor Swift.
I mean, honestly, it makes me happy that they're getting DPs of this caliber to shoot music videos still. It means that that's still a vibrant world somehow.
I am glad that they're just still music videos, especially with the demise of MTV. And,
I know. It's just shocking to me that, that MTV is just gone. I mean, it still exists, but...
Not really. It's gone. It's really gone.
Yeah.
So,
super weird.
So those are all the nominees. Good luck to everyone. We can't pick favorites on this show. I'll have our...
We love you all. It's like choosing your favorite child. You are allowed to choose your favorite dog, I've learned, but not your favorite child. ASC nom 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 nom. Congratulations, ASC nominees. You're awesome.
Yeah. The ASC nominations, of course, really set sort of the pace for future awards, at the very award seasons that are going on right now. So it'll be interesting to see what takes place.
Hey, do you remember when we went to the ASC Awards many years ago? It was probably about 10 years ago.
I do. I remember that time. Yeah, it was a good time. We hung out with a lot of cool deep.
Actually, it was more than 10 years ago because we had not launched the podcast yet. We were talking about it. And I remember meeting a couple of amazing people and saying, would you be on this podcast? And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem.
That would have been 2013, back when the ASC Awards were still slightly affordable. So
yeah. I remember meeting Rodney Charters there.
Yeah.
I was very, very nerdy and excited to meet Rodney Charters. Still am.
Yes, I've been a couple of times since then, but I haven't been to the ASC Awards in years now. So it's a very, very pricey evening to go to that now. All right, so that just about wraps up our what's going on this week in Close Focus. We should move on to the interview with Amy Vincent.
Here we go.
Amy Vincent, welcome back to the Cinematography Podcast. You were on about a year ago, and you've got a new movie now called Song Sung Blue. Welcome back to the Cinematography Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Ilya. It's great to be here. And it's nice to have 2 years in a row of doing a cinematography podcast. Yeah.
It's really wonderful. And so is this new movie. I just watched it last night and I enjoyed it so much. It's really phenomenal. For the people who don't know, for the people who haven't been tracking Song Sung Blue, do you want to give them the quick synopsis of it? Because
I want to hear your fresh synopsis since you saw it last night.
All right. Well, my synopsis is this. It's based on a true story, and it's a love story. It's a drama about music impersonators in Milwaukee in the late 80s, early 90s. And I will say that don't think I have ever seen a movie specifically about, music act impersonators, but that doesn't even that doesn't explain the heart of this movie. And it's got such a great heart. And I want to say that I kept thinking back because they're totally different movies, but there is some similarities and some parallels with Hustle and Flow. And we talked a lot about Hustle and Flow last time you were on the show. And in my opinion, there is sort of this this arc of striving for goal, this arc of love, and there's all these sort of like parallel sort of themes that go between these totally different movies, because of course the people who made them are many of the same people, and including yourself and director Craig Brewer. So uh, tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about getting the band back together. How did this all come together?
Well, I think that the real goal and gold in this filmmaking journey for me really has been to find the people that want to tell a similar kind of story that I do. And because Craig and I partnered up on Hustle and Flow over 20 years ago now, it's almost like we've grown up together. And so to have a collaborator in a director like Craig, for me, is the epitome of reaching the place where I want to work now for the continuum. And by that, I mean finding people who have like-minded stories and who want to tell stories with heart, but also with a lot of realism. And I bring up the realism because that's the foundation visually for where we started with this project. It is based on Mike and Claire Sardina, who are the subjects of Greg Coe's incredible documentary of the same name, Song Sung Blue. And, Craig, being his Memphian kind of, grassroots filmmaking kind of self, he discovered Greg Coe's documentary in 2008 at a film festival in Memphis, and he's held on to that story. And after he had done Dolomite with producers John Davis and John Fox, they asked him what he wanted to do next. And that was the beginning of this iteration of Song Sung Blue. And just to add to your synopsis of the story, it really is a middle-aged love story with the backdrop of Neil Diamond music in the world of music impersonation and musicians who play for the money in the tip jar. And I'm a little bit misquoting Craig there, but that's pretty much, you know, it's a story about people who perhaps dream beyond their means. Um, and Hustle and Flow is very similar in terms of the storytelling and the reaching of the dream through collaboration, art, music, and ultimately love, right?
Yeah, and indeed. And it's beautiful. It looks so great. It's a really it's a very different looking movie than Hustle and Flow, but it's a wonderful look. There's a turning point that happens about I'd say end of Act 1, sort of in the movie. There's an accident that takes place. And the shot that leads up to the accident is so wonderful. It is harrowing for the audience, because the person who's in peril has no idea of what's happening. It is such a fantastic, one moment that kind of sets this turning point. It kind of shifts the entire movie we've seen so far on its head. Can you talk a little bit about that shot and just basically how that came to be and how that got planned out? Because I felt like it's such a perfect, it's just the randomness of life, and it's like, so it's such a perfect moment in that movie. Can you talk about it?
Well, as you will see if you refer to Greg Coe's documentary, there was a window just like that window that we put in. The whole movie was shot on practical locations, and our production designer, Clay Griffith, put that window from the dining area into the kitchen area in very specifically for to open up the space, and to give us the opportunity to do that shot very specifically. And the house itself was chosen primarily because of the trajectory that the window in the living room has to the street. The entire film was shot on practical locations in New Jersey, playing for Milwaukee in the late 80s, mid 90s. The time trajectory of the actual time where all these events took place was a bit longer, but Craig, in his screenwriting, consolidated that into approximately 2 years. And that's marked by the sobriety markers. And this particular recording of the song was a sobriety marker as well. But, it was one of those things where Craig and I will have that conversation. Like, he's just going to stand here in this corner. And a lot of the shot design for the movie was informed by the limited space of the locations. But rather than have that be an obstacle, it was something that we embraced in terms of the realism. I mean, there was a Barca Lounger armchair that was like the biggest thing you could imagine inside the tiny living room. That was the one shot I got to move that giant elephant, literal elephant in the room. And, there's this thing that happens with lighting, with camera movement, with all of that stuff that has a realism to it in Craig's work and in my work with Craig. And at first, I was a little hesitant to approach the entire movie in terms of practical locations because of the amount of times and the low ceilings and the time of day and all the things that we know that go into that. But when I sort of turned a corner with it and we just embraced it, it really informed the sort of realism on set for the actors and became sort of a wonderful thing. But to go back to that, I said Craig and I were having our conversation about this. And, Craig moves through spaces when we're prepping. He really does a lot of his prep work and a lot of the information I need to know to approach each scene. He does it a little bit on the fly. He's always moving and he's like, yeah, and then we'll be here. And then he did this. It was a human camera move, but he did this thing where he goes, and then we'll come out here and we'll just slowly move across. And it was one of those sort of back panny kind of moves that it was like, I got it there and the timing of it. And then, we laid in this one thing that there's a shadow of an airplane that triggers the sound that enhances the fact that she's not necessarily hearing or seeing
What's about to happen.
what's about to happen. And there were all these little things that Craig in his mind had layered over. So the sort of mundaneness to that shot where we just float off the picture window, and then there we are in the picture window, the kitchen window to the picture window. It was one of the things that Craig was quite specific about, but it's specific in the mundanity of it and in the everydayness of it, and it makes it therefore a little more shocking when that event hits. And there's always that part of me that has to say, "Are you sure that's all the coverage you want to do?" And Craig's confidence in that beat, in the writing and in the storytelling, gave me the confidence to say, okay, this shot has to be it. It has to be everything. It has to land perfectly. And, I do feel like that. I had no idea at the time, but that is one of the shots that people really single out. And, yeah, I guess it works.
It totally works. I mean, here's the thing. So many shots are supposed to be invisible. They're not supposed to draw a lot of attention to itself. This one does draw attention to itself because it completely turns the story. This is a major, this is the end of Act 1. This is the most major sort of like point in the story that happens. Everything we've known up until this point is about to change. And to me, it was just like, it's filmmaking at the highest level. It looks so amazing. It's so well put together. It's on screen just long enough that everyone knows what's going to happen. And the airplane shadow too, because then it's like, it also sets the stage for like, you can't hear what's going on because this plane is passing low overhead right now. It's the horror aspect of it in how mundane the setting is really spectacular. And so, no, it doesn't surprise me at all that people point that out.
There's a lot of things in the we did not do a remake of the documentary, but the fundamental sort of as you're saying, the end of Act One, the point in time where nothing is ever the same again for our characters. These little markers, also the marking of like we've found true success. All the movies that Craig and I had done before this were shot on film.
Mm.
And that was Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, and the remake of Footloose. And Craig loves this sort of taste and this look that we have developed over the course of our collaborations, a really solid contrast and these vibrant colors, but with a lot of control. I know that freedom that Craig needs and wants to feel when he's actually rolling. And to take it to another level, I felt like I have enough command and experience with the Sony Venice 2 color science and the sensor that I could say, okay, give me a minute. And we shot some tests, and I was able to work with the amazing colorist Tom Poole at Company 3 and deliver a look to Craig that made him feel like it looked. They say if you want to shoot film, but that wasn't a practical thing for this movie with the long rolling times. And also, Craig has developed an improvisational, instinctual confidence that I don't want to mar that in any way by the technicals or the logistics of things. And that's part of why we're such a good team as collaborators, is because I protect that instinctual, improvisational way that his writer's mind works, that his director's mind works. And having the opportunity to work with Hugh and Kate's hair and makeup teams, Tom Poole, our colorist, and shoot this. It was only 1 day's worth of actual cameras rolling on testing, but
Wow.
Clay Griffith, the designer, and Ernesto Martinez, the costume designer, we all came together and we put all the wares on the table, if you will. I had the wood paneling from the house, some samples of wallpaper, a lot of the practical fixtures that we were going to use. But I had the most special thing is that I had Hugh and Kate and their teams with them so that we could really, because this is what it's all about, right? Ultimately.
For
And
sure.
that set off not only a wonderful technical foundation for then Tom Poole and Tom does all the work. Finesse the LUT. I shot with a singular LUT the entire movie. Finesse the LUT, but it also gave the entire crew, including the cast, a really good idea of where we were going before we started going there in terms of the production journey. And it was the single most important day of shooting in terms of gathering the team, and it set the tone for, it sounds a little cheesy to say, but it was a truly joyful set. There was a feeling of, I think part of that comes from Neil Diamond's music has a familiarity to it that everybody likes it, whether they admit it or not. But being that close and that work in that collaborative with Hugh and Kate and the other actors' hair and makeup teams was really something that it was wonderful, so that then we could dare to go into these eyebrows to chin close-ups, which the one with Hugh was planned, and then when we got to that the time where we inverted it. So Hugh is coming towards us in his eyebrows to chin close up, and we are closing in on Kate. So we're coming to Kate, and there's a little bit of different visual storytelling language in there. But because I was in the middle of doing lens tests, and we had that privilege to work with Tom Poole with the LUT and the Hugo Prime lenses, I dared to go there. And Craig could see what the end result was going to be. And so that's sort of how we got there to the foundation. And being able to proceed with confidence that you've created a lot and you've chosen the right lenses. You know, the Hugos have a form factor that's quite small. They're very compact as opposed to the Lights primes, which I also love, but they're, you know,
Enormous, yeah, or big, yeah.
22 pounders or whatever. The practical locations of it all and being able to, you know, my camera operator, Dave Thompson, has this extraordinarily compact handheld build of the camera that became very useful to us for some scenes because of the space limitations, literally.
I want to talk a little bit about the musical numbers. The musical numbers, and you know, I'm not disparaging any other movie out there, but like musical numbers have it sometimes a tendency to feel long. They don't necessarily have the pieces. They don't have the story beats. They switched from, hey, we're making a movie to now we're making a concert. This never feels like this. This movie feels like, you know, every single shot is so planned out in the musical performance numbers that, you know, there's a story that's going on, even though it's a performance, and there's a story between the different members of the band. There's a story between, you know, uh, Hugh and Kate. There is all of this stuff that's sort of happening. Can you talk a little bit about like breaking down and planning out some of these performances, because they're really, really masterfully put together?
Well, that's sort of, thank you very much, by the way. I feel like that's something Craig and I have always really focused on, from Hustle and Flow to through Footloose with Black Snake Moan in the middle. There's always been an awareness and a consciousness of the narrative and the character while the music number or the dance number is happening. And I felt like the performance, the way the screenplay is written, the performances build as our characters are building on their journey. The venues get larger, and so I make a little bit of a chart for myself in terms of what lighting fixtures we're going to use, but I always felt like there needed to be a definition in the proscenium that was done by the lighting, which also led Craig and I to decide on the 185 format, because we want to be able to photograph the beautiful park cans up here and the footlights down there and whatever either scrappy or not lighting is coming from the sides. And
It's so true that when you go into that you know, really widescreen aspect ratio, it's so much harder to see what's going on at the edges of frame. So
the edges and you know, it's the top and bottom.
well, top and bottom edge, I mean, yes, but yeah.
Yeah. The ability to photograph the lights that are lighting the subject is, to me, it's like luxurious as a cinematographer, because you can put the light in the exact right place that it wants to be in terms of where it's falling on the subject, but then you get to see it too. And so embracing flaring, embracing the photographing of fixtures, and that's something that I haven't talked that much about in the press lately. You know, I used the progression of the building of their performances as we move from, you know, shitty biker bars to casinos to then the big main stage. Um, you know, I used that as a progression to reflect what was happening with the characters. We had the privilege to treat the finale performance. We needed to treat that as you would a real road show. You know, we had to load in, we had to load out, we had to, you know, the design, of course, was worked on way ahead of time for that. And I will just take a minute off to say that my gaffer, Daniel McCabe, and the theatrical lighting designer, Christina C., were absolutely invaluable to me on this journey. And that collaboration, you know, it's lighting, right? It's what we do. But treating that concert, you know, we had a tech rehearsal day. And we had to load out after. So there were all these sort of parameters that made it also like authentic. It was, you know, the sort of stage uh, it was the Ritz Theater in Elizabeth, New Jersey is the name of the place. They also shot there on Faden Papa Michael's movie, A Complete Unknown.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
like, what did Faden do here? No, I'm just kidding. You know,
Very different. Very, very different. Yeah, yeah.
but I experienced one of my favorite moments in the course of shooting the movie on the day that we were doing the tech rehearsal, because Hugh and Kate came to do the rehearsal and they were in their in their street clothes, not in their costumes.
Mhm.
And we were going through the cues, and of course all these extraordinary technicians, from the follow spot operators to the console programmer, were using old fashioned, old school period fixtures from that
Yeah.
time period, but we have all the control of it of modern day. So Hugh and Kate were rehearsing, and then I heard Hugh say to Kate, "Can you believe we get to do this for a living?" And it was just one of those moments where that was the feeling on set throughout the shoot. It was like we were loading in for a live concert every day. And sometimes you know, it was just actors talking in a very small living room on location in Old Tappan, New Jersey. But sometimes it was, bigger music numbers. So I also think that the key for me with the music numbers with Craig is to really listen and really pay attention when he's working it out in the physical space, because we started working in the physical space from the very beginning. On Hustle and Flow, we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of time, but what we did have is the authenticity of the real shotgun house that all that
Hmm.
movie took place in. And Craig and I would go and talk and walk through scenes in the real space. And now Craig does that everywhere. Sometimes now he uses his phone, but in the old days, he used to carry a boom box around and he'd play the music and walk through each number. And I found that when I pay attention and listen to those times when Craig is sort of actively figuring it out and thinking, and it's oftentimes when we're on the early scouts, so not everybody is privy to all that information. I've started recording him because there's so much gold in there in terms of figuring out how we're going to lay it all out.
Yeah, I got to give some real credit to Kate Hudson too. I don't think I've ever seen a movie before where she sings, and her singing is amazing. I know she comes from a musical father, but I mean it's like wow, that was a impressive amount of singing. And I got to say, Hugh Jackman is he sings in a lot of things, so he's done a lot of movies with singing, but when you guys are shooting these musical numbers, are you actually having them perform, or are you is it a pre-recorded backing track? I know there's some different ways that people are doing it these days. How did you guys do it?
Ilya, you ask the best questions,
Oh.
partly because I know the answer to them. No, um, the first two Neil Diamond songs, as Hugh Jackman and Kate
Mm.
Hudson's characters, Mike and Claire Sardina, are beginning to get to know each other and fall in love. uh, Play Me, Cherry Cherry, then Play Me. Those vocal tracks are recorded live. So the actors have, an earpiece in and they're hearing the music and their vocals are being recorded live. The rest of the vocal tracks were recorded in a little New Jersey studio. Now, Craig does all of his music recording in Memphis with a bunch of extraordinary, Stax Records and all those things, extraordinary musicians. Um, and then Hugh and Kate come in, and it was really beautiful because they were actually just first meeting each other. And they're also getting to know each other, sitting on a couch recording vocal tracks. And, it was to be able to have that privilege as a cinematographer to be in the room where that kind of stuff is happening has also always been something that Craig has given the unspoken permission for me to be there, fly on the wall, from the early days of Terrence Howard to now with Hugh and Kate, to be able to be there and be an observer in the very initiating kind of stuff that happens. The blocking and staging for Play Me when they're sitting back to back on the piano bench and the camera's moving around. That all started for me by watching Hugh and Kate, physically moving and singing in those initial rehearsals. So I have to say it's not only is it an extraordinary question, but I also take my hat off to both all the cast, but really Hugh and Kate and their musicality made everything just so fun. And also it's like a visual discovery, a little bit of it. I've come to a place in my own work where I don't feel like I have to tell a camera operator and crane grip to exactly what to do and where to be, but you give your primary collaborators, you give them the music, you have a couple of key points where you want to land in symmetry at the wide end of the 19 to 45 and whatnot, and then you let people do what they're excellent at doing.
Yeah, I actually want to piggyback off of something you just said, because I know it's great that you were there for, music recording, but that is not typically, I don't know too many DPs who go and will spend, I know you say it was a day, but it seems like it could have been a very long time, being present and witnessing something that might not necessarily, at least on surface value, inform your work. It sounds to me that going and being the fly on the wall for that initial Hugh and Kate, music recording session really helped, inspire how they should be shot during some of these sequences. And I think that's really cool. I mean, is that sort of part of your process then? Is to really be then the fly on the wall, is to be present, is to, be attached to Craig whenever he's like off doing some things that may not necessarily feel like cinematography, but actually in some ways then comes back to the look of the movie?
I think so. I mean, I consider it such a privilege. And Craig and I have a real brother sister kind of. We spend a lot of time together when we're in the production prep and production mode. We I've talked about it a lot, but we also drive to work together every day, and
Nice.
we do as much. We do
Keeps you
as
working.
much. There were long. There's always the hidden silver lining to everything. Those commutes in New Jersey were pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And Craig and I just decided, when we realized we were going to be spending an hour and a half based on traffic, to get from one place to another, there's that early period of scouting when you're
Mm.
still in director scout and still making final decisions about locations. But this is another reason why I love the fact that the movie ended up being zero stage work in all
Mm.
practical location. It's because Craig and I had all this van time,
Mm.
and we used that time. It protects the Craig's ability to be instinctual, and a discovery he may have made with Kate and Hugh the day before, that is going to impact. He goes home and writes too. After, he doesn't watch dailies, but he writes.
Mm.
And then he hops in the van again at 5:30 in the morning to head to set and says, what do you think if
Mm.
and then I'm able to say to the crew, remember what we said we were going to do? Well, it's not quite as random as I make it sound,
It
but
doesn't sound random. No, it doesn't sound random. It sounds actually very methodical. It sounds like Craig's got a method, and that you and he, because of that extra face time, especially like in the van on the way, you get to be on the same page, a full hour before, the van's getting unpacked, a full hour before everything else. That gives you just way more time to ruminate on what the conversation is, and to make a plan. I think that it's kind of magical that you get to have this little advantage. I know quite often, directors in particular get pulled in 19 different directions. They don't get that much time always with their DP. It's like sometimes it's, they have to rely on the shorthand. They have to rely on, what's happening. So I think that this is, certainly makes the case that, the DP director relationship should probably have more time if possible.
Yeah, and it's funny the way that prep usually goes. Craig is in the recording studio during when we're doing this like most critical tech scout stuff. So oftentimes he's not able to be, he can't be everywhere. And I sometimes I used to say, "What do you mean you're not going to be at the tech scout on Friday?" And then I now the way that our relationship is, and I make sure that I have everything that he has in his intentions with me, and I take it as a huge compliment that Craig respects and has enough confidence in me that I can cover it. Whereas in a more immature version of myself, I might have been a little frustrated by a director who would not show up. But yeah, the collaboration when you also I think it's a great honor to have repeat collaborations with not just one person but others too. When you know each other you can support, and Craig always comes with such extraordinary writing that I am inspired from the get-go and I bring a little bit, Craig brings a little bit, Craig brings a lot, I mean a huge amount. And I think the way that we're able to solve problems together, or he's able to say, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And I can say, how about this? And he'll say, no, that's too cheesy. Or, oh, that's a great idea. Show me as soon as we get in. I also think that Craig has a way of collaborating with the rest of the crew that inspires everybody to bring their game. And, there's a level of generosity and kindness and just a way of being that Craig is with both the actors and the crew that makes for a really constructive, productive, devoted work environment.
Let's go back to the look of the film of just for a bit here. I think that I mean we've already we've talked a lot about various aspects of it, but there is, you mentioned the LUT, and I know that there's a LUT, but most of when I think back of the visuals of this movie, it's not all about a LUT. The LUT is, of course, the icing on the cake, or the thing that brings the tonality into certain ranges, but there is there's a lot of shadows in sort of the musical numbers, which of course, because it's dramatic and it's on stage, and there's also just these great conversations. There's a point early in there's points in this where it's not trying to attract too much attention to itself. It's supposed to look very naturalistic, but the lighting is so dramatic and the feel is so real. And I think that there's a part right near the beginning of the movie, I'm giving nothing away, where Mike says to Claire, I think that I think that you should be Thunder, or she says, you think I should be Thunder, and they're on a porch, and then they have this kiss, and it's like everything about it just feels so real, and it's not played for sentimentality. It's not played for like I don't want to throw another movie under the bus here of like this, dramatic moment. It's played for so real, but yet everything is perfect. There's beautiful hair lights. They have this wonderful moment together. Can you talk just a little bit about trying to keep these real moments like that still feel like elevated? It still feels like a Hollywood movie. I know you've got this incredible cast, but it's like, how do you make, what could otherwise be a glamorous, very sort of like stagey thing feel like grounded in reality?
Well, I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that that is a real location. That is a real second story rickety porch where we had to bring in an engineer to make sure we could fit the crane base up there. It was not, it's a very simple camera move, but it was not an easy execution there.
There's a lot of really great movements through this. Like, I mean, coming off of like Marquise, and I think there's a spot like at the county fair when he's originally coming in to play the Don Ho. There's all these wonderful sort of like moments and pushes and things that happen through this, and never once do they draw attention to themselves. I tend to pay attention to all this stuff, but it's like they're really nice. They're really nice movements that keep the frame interesting without letting it, it sits when it needs to sit, but it moves also on drama. And is that all to the credit of your operator? Is this something that you guys are planning out? How does that come about?
Dave Thompson and I have worked together a few times, and this was I had the privilege of working with 3 camera operators that I already know quite well: Henry Klein, Julian Dela Cruz, and of course on A camera, Dave Thompson. And they work together as a team, but they also are very dedicated to the overall vision of the movie and the visual storytelling of the movie. I'm going to say that while that shot was very difficult to execute, it played so well, giving the actors the ability to continue that journey. Okay, we're inside the 2nd floor apartment. She's brought him home after their date. They've played their first Cherry Cherry. The grandmas come and said, "Stop it, be quiet." And then they begin to fall in love on Play Me. This is all building and building to this moment where when they come together for that kiss, there's no way you want to cut, right? You just want to be there. And that was something that, one of our producers came and said, "You're not going to cover the kiss?" And Craig was like, "No, that's like," because it all played in the one wide shot. But it's the relationship to the scene that comes before, and the relationship to where we go, and editorially the bringing of the Mike Imperioli, Buddy Holly music in underneath that scene. It's like a continuum, right? So they're beginning to fall in love, and we're like, wait a minute, what is this song playing? It's every day, but I think and then we're in the casino the next day, and then we see that, we see Hugh, Mike Sardina, with his new haircut, and that was, Craig just loved that shot where the chandelier is like crowning him. And he's there in his fringe jacket with his new Neil Diamond hairdo.
Yes, exactly.
I think that we take all that stuff very seriously. There's obviously it's a place for a little chuckle when, he first makes his entrance into the casino there. But I guess what I'm saying is that the overall construct of the movie comes from the script, and the decisions to play things certain ways is a collaboration of all things.
Yeah.
When I saw Hugh come out in the Neil Diamond, wig, and it was like, that absolutely has to have its own like special moment, just in case everybody doesn't get it on that wide shot when he walks in. But it's still connected, and it's connected musically and editorially to the scene that came before. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that what I hear when you're describing this is a lot. It plays a lot to the tone of this project. I definitely think that if the tone of this movie had been too somber, too serious, if it had been more stagey, if it had been in such a way that, like, Claire and Mike were really put themselves on a pedal, and there was a lot of reverence always for where the camera is. The camera almost always meets them on their level. It's almost always at eye level. There's not a lot of like, we're shooting down at the floor and look how powerful and amazing stuff. There's all kinds of ways I feel like, this movie wouldn't have worked the way that it does work, but because it does, it plays like, just this wonderful, lovely, fun story that you're glad that you went down this journey. You glad you got to know these people. These are people who aren't necessarily usually the protagonists of a big Hollywood movie, and you're 100% glad that you did get to have this story and experience. Your work and Craig's work and all of everyone working together. They create an empathetic relationship with the viewer, and that's where the magic happens, and that is where the tone is, and I think it's a huge triumph, and I'm so glad that that I got to see the movie and that we're getting to talk about it today. So this is really fantastic.
It's really fun to talk to you about it because the movie's so fresh for you.
Yeah. You've seen it 1,000 times. Yeah.
I have, but you know what? Every time I see it with a different audience now. Of course, when we were in post doing color and everything, I saw it a lot of times. But now I experience the movie sort of from the eyes of whoever is sitting next to me or whoever I dragged along, or knowing that my whole family, I'm one of six, so my whole family has gone to see the movie. It's a movie for everyone, and there's something there. There are some big tonal shifts, and there's trauma and tragedy, but there's also love wins in this one, and um, it's a beautiful message to put out to the world, and it sort of aligns. The process of making the movie was very similar to what the movie is about, I would say. And the same goes for Hustle and Flow. And that means that, Craig is aligned with his own idea, the idea of telling stories about people who dream beyond their means. I always love that. That's a line from Craig. Um, is something that I hope I get to continue doing. It's both a joy and it's accessible to people in a way that makes me very happy at this point in time.
So there's a really striking dream sequence that takes place in the movie, and uh, you don't know as an audience member that you're inside of a dream. You kind of have this moment of like, what's going on, because it fits so much with everything we've seen up until that point. And there's this really wonderful reveal, of course, that's not the case. Can you talk a little bit about how this sequence came to be?
Well, there is a lot of that sequence to me exists in the transitions in and out of it. But it's also one of the only places in Craig's script where we break from reality, where we're not necessarily in, the character's reality, you know, normal dialogue and whatnot. Um, there was a responsibility to me to really think about what it is like to be impaired, to be not just impaired by pain medications, but impaired by depression, impaired by injury, impaired, and also immobilized, and what that would bring out in perhaps a dream that is about how you wish to see yourself or how you remember yourself. Because Claire Sardina, Kate's character, has been forever changed by this, but there's also a descent into pain meds and weight gain and immobility and questioning of future and self, and it became apparent to Craig and I that we should create an images of Claire Sardina's idealized vision of herself. And that was a great place for me to get to do some real beauty lighting. And so the initial transition into that scene was inspired by the Andrew Wyeth painting, Christina's World.
Mm.
And it gave an ability for us to, the camera's like sliding on the floor behind her with her legs, towards the bathroom door and reaching into the light, and then the parting of the shimmer curtains into this larger than life, glamorous, full on frontal spotlight kind of moment that then is broken by, it's like breaking the fourth wall or whatever you say, but broken by Mike Sardina's, Hugh Jackman's voice cutting through the music and breaking perception. Then we transition. I carried one of the spotlights over into the front yard sequence so that when she falls, the spotlight is still fading out in the yard with the headlights going by and that. And you know, it's one of those sequences where it was a lot of fun to shoot. It was very heavy when we were out in the front yard. You know, the performance stuff. It was Craig's birthday when we were shooting the performance in the pink dress with the navy blue mylar curtains and all that stuff. And it was a pretty joyful day on set because we were finally out of the family house. We were in a much more open space location. And we were also close to the end of the schedule. So it was a really great vibe. But on the other hand, the front yard of the house, cold winter night in New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
Kate's
In a
in
nightgown.
her
Yeah.
in a nightgown and, you know, falling on the frozen ground. And we had kept having to cut because the high school marching band was playing down the street at the like last football game of the season, winter, East Coast, right? And in the distance is playing Sweet Caroline from the from the high school marching band. And we had to stop filming. The whole crew started singing along to Sweet Caroline while we were waiting for the music to stop so we could continue filming. And it was just one of those extraordinary moments with, you know, Hugh and Kate both in their pajamas out in the front yard in the middle of the winter, and Sweet Caroline playing sort of a bad version of Sweet Caroline.
Yeah, the brass marching band version, yes.
Yeah, but I think that kind of sums it up. I can still hear Kate's laugh, you know. It's just like,
Well, that's one of those, like, you know, sort of only on set. Only do you get to, you know, these the war stories of like you know, life imitating art and, you know, bleeding into everywhere. So that's a really cool story. I'm glad that you shared it. When last we spoke, you were doing a artist in residency at LMU. Are you still doing that? Is that a
yes, I am, and it's a big part of who I am and how I roll. And right now I have 12 School of Film and Television grad students at Loyola Marymount University, aka LMU. It's a very rewarding, but also it keeps me on my toes. I feel like I've become a much better cinematographer through the process of the last 2 years of being actively an artist in residence and working with young filmmakers all the time. And it makes me actually have to be authentic and true. I have to practice what I preach. But I have really grown as a filmmaker through the process, and I'll continue doing it as long as I can.
I'll tell you just one small factoid, which I think that you'll appreciate. Our local street sweeper here in Portland, Oregon, is Sweep Caroline. So
Oh my gosh.
I'm not like the world's biggest Neil Diamond fan. I wouldn't call myself a fan, but I would say that the impact of his work and music is undeniable. And every every Thursday when the street cleaning comes by and I see Sweep Caroline, it plays in my head. So, you know, it's pretty funny.
You know, there's a thing where now everybody, I guess in Neil Diamond's household, if somebody says so good, then three other people say so good, so good, so good.
Yeah, that's perfect. Anyway, Amy, this is so much fun.
It's so fun to talk to you. You ask really great questions.
Amy, I think that's a great place for us to leave it. Thank you very much for being on the show. Before we go, is there some place that people can find you? Are you on the social medias at all? Do you do an Instagram or anything like that?
I have Instagram. I'm learning to be better about it. I've done a lot of Song Sung Blue posts recently. That's Amy V. Vincent.
We will put a link to it in our show notes over at Cam Noir, so you can get some new followers.
That's great. I love getting new followers.
All right, Ben, that was Amy Vincent. So, hey, Amy, fantastic having you on the show again. Great talking about Song Sung Blue. I'm really looking forward to meeting up at some point here in the near future.
Can I admit something? When I saw the preview for Song Sung Blue, I'm like, that movie's not for me. And then when I saw it, I'm like, this movie's awesome. I actually really liked it. It's really good. And I don't usually pull out my phone during a movie, but I there was no one sitting around me, and I'm like, this has to be a true story. Like, the details of this are too random to be like, anyone wrote that and turned it into an executive to be like, oh, I don't know about the car crash. Like there would be something. And of course, it's based on a true story. I still haven't seen the documentary, but that movie actually really stuck with me. I think it's a really well-made, beautiful film. Amy's work is freaking amazing.
Yeah, it deserves all the love it's getting and more. I really hope that a lot of people get to see this movie.
Yep, I get why it was shortlisted for the Oscars. Let's go ahead and get into our short ends, our pet obsessions of the week. Ilya, what is your obsession this week?
Kind of a random thing happened this week. Fuji launched a hybrid instant camera called the Instax Mini Evo Cinema. Just flows off the tongue. But what's really interesting about this camera, and it truly is not like any camera, and I do mean not like any camera that has existed before. So their sort of tagline is, one camera, decades of possibilities. And it's a little video camera that records 15-second clips. So it's sort of like one of those old sort of like flip video cameras once upon a time. It's
I remember those.
Styled like a I don't know, 1950s Super 8 camera or something like that, or maybe a single 8 or a regular 8. It's like kind of like this vertical format. And then it's got a mode dial on the side where you can adjust what decade you want your video to look like. You can go from anything from the 1930s to the 2020s. And there's a little knob.
Man, they missed out. I should be able to do 1910s. It should look like I should make it look Lumiere. I should be able to go back to, 1875 and make it look like an oil painting.
That is that would be cool, and it wouldn't surprise me if people hack this or decide that they want to do more with it, and if it's a hit. Right now, it feels a little bit like a novelty to me because I haven't even gotten to its like number one party trick. You can shoot videos and photos and print them from your smartphone.
Okay.
It's like the thing seems to like also like spit out Polaroid style, like instant prints, like instant scans. And then you can also play your prints, which they have like their Instax, like sort of white Polaroid-esque border all around it, on social media by scanning a QR code, and then it will take you to the video.
I need to watch a video on this because honestly, I don't follow all this crap that this camera does.
Yeah, we will put a link to it in the show notes over at Cam Noir, and at least to the press release. Fujifilm does really, really interesting, innovative stuff. And one thing is for sure is that I'm confident the fit and finish of this is going to be really good, even if like the quality of the video, I'm sure, is going to be relatively lo-fi because, of course, most of those decades were hallmarked by by either lo-fi film or lo-fi video. And I don't think when they say 1930s, they're trying to emulate the best of the 1930s. I think it's probably a very small format sensor inside of there. I know it's a very small lens. It's a little handheld thing. So it's a bit of a novelty, but there is nothing else out there like that. And I commend Fujifilm for being the people to step forward. They've already been sort of like the company that has tried to do a lot of film emulation inside of their cameras, mostly with color. I'm assuming, though, that with this, it's not just going to be color. It's probably going to be resolution or possibly damage or whatnot. And the whole idea of having this border feels a little bit like a gimmick. It doesn't feel like that's something that is super practical, except for the fact that people love doing this stuff on social media. They love degrading the image. They love putting on kitschy effects and kitschy things. And for the person out there who's looking for that with like a little hold it up to your eye, trigger activated Super 8 sort of style, there's nothing else.
I mean, to me, this sounds more like a stocking stuffer than something you're going to use for actual cinema stuff.
Yep. Right now, the press release here just says price open. It doesn't say anything there, so I don't know what that means. So,
all right.
So Ben, what is your short end this week?
I found the coolest documentary, and I want everyone to see it. It's called Chain Reactions. It's directed by somebody named Alexandre O. Felipe. Might be Alejandre. I don't know. Hope I didn't massacre your name. It's shot by somebody named Robert Moratore. Robert Moritore. I'm going to just confidently go with that. Anyway, it is a documentary about the impact of the 1974 amazing horror movie, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre by Tobe Hooper. And I love this movie. It's a great movie. I think it holds up. There are things about it that don't quite hold up, but there are things about it that were so far ahead of their time that it kind of makes up for it. And, it's a crazy low budget movie, probably the best film Tobe Hooper ever made. And, I would include movies like Poltergeist on that list. I think it's a genuinely horrifying film. So it's broken into 5 chapters, and each chapter is basically narrated by a different person. Chapter 1 is Patton Oswalt. Chapter 2, Takeshi Miike. Chapter 3, critic Alexandra Heller-Nichols. Chapter 4, Stephen King. And Chapter 5, Karen Kusama. And all of them go into extreme detail about how this movie impacted their lives and impacted their art and impacted the way they look at cinema. And every one of them is like a standalone. There's nothing more fascinating to me than seeing brilliant intellectual kind of people yak about a film that was crazy influential like this. I feel like Tobe Hooper is one of those horror filmmakers. He's like one of the masters of horrors, like John Carpenter, Stuart Gordon. A lot of these guys kind of get lumped together, and I feel like, again, Tobe Hooper never quite made another film that had the impact of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But honestly, if you make one film in your life that has the level of impact that this movie had, you're way ahead. And it's interesting hearing all of those people talk about how that movie hit them, why it frightened them. I think it was Patton Oswalt who said it's like a movie about psychotics that feels like it was made by a psychotic. It's so good. I was glued to it the whole way through. It's playing on Shudder. That's where I found it. And, but it's probably playing other places. Check it out. Let me know what you think. It's called, again, Chain Reactions.
Wow. That's super cool. I would say that some of those people on that list I would absolutely expect to be there, like a Stephen King. I was not necessarily expecting to have Karen Kusama on there. So that's interesting.
She goes into a lot of detail. The thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for me is it was one of the horror movies I came into later as a horror fan, because when I was younger and getting into horror, it sounded like the most transgressive thing you could ever make. Just everything about it. And then when I finally saw it, I was like, the funny thing about Texas Chainsaw Massacre is it's not especially gory, even by the standards of its own time. Like, Tobe Hooper was going for a PG rating when he made the movie. So there's not a lot of blood, but it's like the most disturbing stuff you will ever see. And there have been multiple sequels and launches and reboots of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. None of them are as good as the OG. It's just so good. It looks so good. It's definitely worth seeing, but this documentary, it's fun to hear, especially like Stephen King, quite an intellectual about horror. I mean, Patton Oswalt, all of them are. Every single one of these people on this list are. But it was fun to hear Stephen King talk about it, because I guess, Stephen King sort of is like the final authority in a lot of our minds. And what he had to say about it was great. And also, not for nothing, he name checks the Blair Witch Project left and right. So that was surreal to hear Stephen King talk about a thing I'd worked on. But
that's fun. Yeah, it's really good.
That's not why I like the documentary, to be clear. Check it out. It's freaking amazing.
Did you ever happen to read Zombie Spaceship Wasteland, Patton Oswalt's book?
I did not.
Yeah, all right. Well, I enjoyed it, and you're right. He's definitely into the genre movies, which is cool.
A lot of comedians are like he is. Dana Gould is. Obviously Chris Rock is. There's a bunch of. I think it's because comedy and horror both rely on surprise, and they're kind of weird mirror images of each other. But Patton Oswalt is just such an all-purpose geek. I've never read any of his books, and I bet I would love them because I love all of his stand-up. I've never seen a Patton Oswalt stand-up I didn't love.
It'd be awesome to talk to Patton Oswalt about this. I bet he doesn't usually get to talk about all of this sort of stuff. So if Patton Oswalt, if you're listening, we'd love to.
If anyone knows Patton Oswalt, yeah, I would love to have him on the show. I very much admire him. Or Dana Gould, even though he's not interviewed in this, but Dana Gould is obsessed with horror. So
all right. Nice. All right, Ben, that does it for this week. Where can people find you?
You can find me at benrock.com. The Ultimate Breakup, we've almost made $5,000 of our funding goal, so we don't really have that much further to go. So please check it out. Ilya, where can people find you?
Can find me over at Hot Rod Cameras, hotrodcameras.com. Get your next lens, camera, lighting, anything that you might need for your social media, for your movies, for your broadcast, you name it. Hot Rod Cameras can help you out.
For your short film that you might be making in March. So, Ilya, who do we need to thank this week?
Let's thank our predator, Alana Cody. She is producing and editing and putting this show together. Thank you very much, Alana Cody. We have to thank Kays Alatrachi. Kays, thank you for the music that everyone heard in this show. Go check Kays out by going to his website, musicbykays.com, or finding him fixing synthesizers over on YouTube at Kays Labs. Ben, you want to take us out?
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Cinepod, the cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory at hotrodcameras.com. Watch and subscribe to our show on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow and interact with us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn, but not X. Don't do that. Thanks for tuning in.